Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take a stack of sources, articles, research, and expert notes, and we just distill the most profound insights, turning all that complex information into immediate, actionable knowledge for you. Today, we cracked open material that, it's not just about performance psychology or motivation. It really reads like a direct user manual for the subconscious mind.
It does.
And it's fundamentally challenging, I think, everything we thought we knew about achievement and how reality actually aligns itself with your internal state.
That really is the crux of it. Most people, when they're seeking change, they're looking for more willpower, right? More hustle or some kind of emotional motivation.
Right, the next big push.
Exactly. But the sources we reviewed, they just cut through all that noise. They propose that relying on that kind of fleeting emotional motivation is, well, it's pretty much a guarantee of long-term failure.
Okay, let's unpack this immediately because that core idea is so counterintuitive. They argue that you don't need more motivation. What you fundamentally need is a settled assumption. And here's the really critical part they emphasize.
Go on.
The most destructive internal act isn't failure. It's living your life as if the world or fate or, life itself is fundamentally against you.
And why is that so dangerous? It's because the subconscious mind, it isn't a critical thinker. It's a loyal and, an incredibly powerful servant.
It just takes orders.
It just takes orders. So if your background assumption is that life is a struggle, your mind will immediately start filtering reality, noticing evidence, and directing your behavior in ways that just prove that negative assumption true.
A self-fulfilling prophecy.
It's the ultimate self-fulfilling prophecy. And the key is it operates silently, beneath the surface of your conscious thought.
So our mission today is to dive deep into the specific mechanism by which this internal certainty or, the lack of it rewrites the external reality you experience.
Yeah.
We're focusing on how shifting your default internal setting, your chosen identity, and maintaining this quiet, non-negotiable consistency. How that's the only reliable shortcut to being effective.
And this whole deep dive, it really hinges on this profound realization that life responds not just to your loud, frantic wishes, but primarily to your settled expectations.
Your silent assumptions.
Silent assumptions. We are going to meticulously explore how choosing the lens through which you view the world changes everything. Your physical posture, the clarity of your voice, what details you even pay attention to, and ultimately the reality you call your own. And this isn't, fluffy optimism.
Yeah.
It's a systematic approach to what is really a mechanical alignment.
Let's start with the central practice recommended in all these sources then. Acquiring what they term calm certainty, which is just defined as acting as if everything somehow always works out for you in the end. This has to be a specific kind of certainty, though, not just blind hope.
Precisely. And it's so vital to understand what this is not. It's not loud optimism, which, often just acts as a defense mechanism against some underlying fear.
Right, like you're trying to convince
You're trying to convince yourself. It's not forcing fake positivity. That sort of emotional effort is completely unsustainable and it just burns out fast.
Oh, well, what is it?
Calm certainty is a deeper, a more fundamental control over the lens you use to filter the world. It's about setting an internal default, a kind of foundational script that runs whether you are consciously thinking about it or not.
If that lens is the determining factor, then, well, controlling it becomes the most critical act of self-management, doesn't it?
It has to be.
Why does that lens have so much power?
Because that lens dictates your very next move.
Yeah.
And your next move decides your momentum. And momentum is the only thing that actually builds the future.
So if you're looking through a lens of fear...
Well, if you're constantly looking through a lens of fear or self-doubt or scarcity, your body will physically tighten and you will naturally make hesitant, small moves. Or, the opposite can happen. You'll rush into these desperate, high-friction actions that lack any kind of refinement.
This is where we need to talk about the inner workings of these background assumptions. We all have them, these silent programs. How do they actually operate?
Okay, think of the brain as having a sorting filter. It's often called the reticular activating system, or RAS.
Right.
Its job is to filter this constant avalanche of incoming stimuli and only show your conscious mind what it deems relevant. An assumption is simply a background program. This is how the world works, or I am the kind of person who struggles, that dictates the filter settings of your RAS.
So it's telling the brain what to look for.
Exactly. If the background assumption is negative, the RAS focuses your attention on threats, on risks, on evidence of struggle. You literally become blind to opportunities or supporting information.
So the opportunities are there, you just don't see them.
They are absolutely there. It's just that your internal filtering system, your assumption, has made them irrelevant to you.
That explains so much. It explains why two people can look at the same market or the same set of circumstances, and one sees total failure while the other sees a huge opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
It's not superior intellect, it's a superior filtering system.
Absolutely. Let's take that classic contrast scenario from the sources. Two people face the exact same delay, the same rejection from a partner or a client, or, the same deep uncertainty about a future project. The external event is neutral or maybe negative, but the internal result is just polar opposite.
Okay, walk us through it.
The person running the assumption, nothing ever works out for me. What happens? Their body collapses, they feel a physical weight.
I think we've all felt that.
We have. They instantly become bitter, they withdraw their energy, and they interpret a neutral silence as a negative sign. They begin mentally preparing for failure, hoarding resources, or just starting the next phase with diminished effort. Their RAS has locked onto danger.
And the person operating with calm certainty, what do they do differently?
They're running a completely different program. Their assumption is, everything is working out for me, even if I can't see how yet.
So what does that look like in the moment?
They become sharper, they adapt, they immediately stop treating that uncertainty as a threat to their identity or their future. They don't read the delay as some kind of personal rejection.
Just data.
It's just data.
Yeah.
And the shift is immediate and profound. Their mind stops cycling through that energy-draining question, what if this goes wrong?
And instead,
It instantly shifts to the highly transformational, action-oriented question. How is this helping me move forward, or what is this teaching me that I need to know?
that question, how is this helping me move forward?
Yeah.
I mean, that's incredible. It forces a pivot from panic to strategy, doesn't it?
It does.
From a victim mentality to being an active manager of the situation. It
Mhm.
shifts the entire emotional atmosphere.
And that leads directly to the core sequence outlined in the source material. Its assumption becomes attention. Attention becomes choices. Choices become habits. And habits become your future.
It's a chain reaction.
It's a complete chain reaction. You are being rewarded or punished not for what you wish for, but for what you repeatedly assume and reinforce internally. If you assume closed doors, your attention finds them, and your resulting choices, hesitation, withdrawal, they just reinforce that closed door reality, draining your momentum.
Let's ground this even further with that, that classic hyper-relatable scenario the sources mentioned.
Yeah.
Sending an important message or proposal and getting no immediate reply.
Yes, the silence.
The silence. If you are operating under a fear-based assumption, which is the default for most people, your mind instantly floods with negative internal dialogue.
They're ignoring me.
Right, or I said something stupid, I must not be important enough. And that fear, it instantly manifests physically. Your shoulders tighten, your stomach clenches, your mood just drops. And suddenly, you are obsessively monitoring your phone. You've just handed over all your internal energy and focus to external validation.
But the person operating with calm certainty, they create a completely different internal reality within that exact same moment.
So what's their internal narrative?
It's simple and it's stabilizing. It's something like, they're busy, the process is in motion, it'll come when it comes. Either way, I'm fine, and my worth is not dependent on this one reply.
So it's the same objective lack of a reply, but the result is a relaxed body, a clean mind.
And energy that remains yours to deploy on the next productive task.
That internal atmosphere is everything then.
It is. One person is spiraling and wasting all these cognitive resources, and the other is just continuing their work with zero friction. Calm certainty ensures that your energy remains internal, protected, and focused on execution rather than being constantly drained by external monitoring and anxiety.
And that's why, as they say, calmness is often indistinguishable from power.
It really is. Now, this connects to another common and I think painful human belief that our lives are defined and shaped by external events.
Right. What happened, what went wrong, the failures we endured.
Exactly. But the deeper truth the sources reveal is that the event itself is often secondary.
The real driver is something else.
The deeper truth is that your life is primarily shaped by the meaning you assign to those events. We can see this in post-traumatic growth, for instance. Two people face a devastating loss, and one becomes permanently diminished by it, while the other uses the crucible of that same experience to forge an unshakable core.
And the mechanism for shrinking, for being diminished, involves what the sources called the second wound. I thought it was a powerful phrase.
It's such a powerful phrase. The original pain, the closed door, the financial loss, the rejection, that's the first wound. The second wound is the interpretive damage.
What do you mean by that?
It's using that closed door as definitive proof that you are fundamentally incapable or that life is fundamentally against you. They internalize the event as a conclusion about their identity.
And that harmful meaning then hardens into a fixed, defensive identity.
Yes, and that identity dictates the future. If you identify as someone who can't win, you start acting defensively. You become guarded, you avoid bold action, you second-guess your intuition, and you constantly hedge your bets.
And that behavior, it feels safe, so you rationalize it. You label it realism.
Which brings us to that powerful, slightly provocative line from the source material, that this realism is often just fear wearing a suit.
I love that line.
It is a critical distinction. A true realism, it involves assessing data calmly. But often what people call realism is just institutionalized fear. The fear of disappointment is so acute that they preemptively lower their expectations and their ambition just to avoid the pain of a potential failure.
So the key distinction is that acting as if everything works out doesn't mean you deny the feeling of disappointment?
Not at all. It means you absolutely refuse to allow that disappointment to become a definitive conclusion that dictates your capacity for the future.
Okay, I think we need to challenge that a little bit, though.
Yeah.
When does calm certainty cross over into outright delusion? Say you've launched 10 businesses and they've all failed based on clearly flawed processes. Isn't realism sometimes just prudence?
That's a necessary challenge, and the sources are very clear on this. Calm certainty is not ignorance of data, it's the interpretation of that data.
Okay.
The person operating from certainty doesn't ignore the 10 failures. They ask, the process was flawed. What are the 10 non-negotiable lessons this experience has built in me?
So they're looking for the lesson, not the label.
Precisely. The person operating from fear says, I am a failure. Certainty focuses on the mechanism that needs adjusting. Fear focuses on the identity that needs abandoning. Certainty makes you a persistent scientist. Fear makes you a quitter who's just looking for confirmation bias.
So that reframes what we call a setback. It's not punishment. It's just life rearranging the pieces for a better fit, but only if we adopt the right interpretation.
The universe is not punishing you. It's often redirecting, refining, and strengthening you. But that refinement is uncomfortable, and crucially, it requires enduring what feels like silence or stasis.
The silence. That's the emotional killer for most people, isn't it?
It is, because silence feels like failure. So we panic and we quit right before the breakthrough. The source reminds us that silence is the workshop of change.
The workshop of change.
A seed grows in silence, beneath the dirt. A muscle grows in silence after the tear. A complex mental shift installs itself in silence.
So the loud parts of life.
The loud parts of life, the cheering, the early validation, the fanfare of the initial launch, that's where people talk about transformation. The real transformation, the hardwiring of the new identity, that happens when nobody is watching.
When there's no proof yet.
When there is no external proof yet, and you still show up consistently ready to execute. That persistence during silence is the only genuine test of your internal assumption.
So let's apply this reframing technique to a moment of genuine, painful difficulty. The immediate human instinct is always that victim question, why is this happening to me?
Which is a question that renders you passive and powerless. The suggested reframe, the shift from being a passive recipient to an active architect, is to stop asking that and immediately ask, what is this building in me? What non-negotiable lesson is this teaching about timing, character, or skill?
That's just a profound shift in internal energy.
It is. A delay is redefined as timing training, which demands patience and refinement. Uncertainty is redefined as a test of identity.
A test of identity.
Life is constantly testing your assumption. Are you the person who collapses under pressure? Or are you the person who remains steady, quiet, and persistent until the unknown reveals itself as your advantage? Your answer isn't spoken. It's built daily in the smallest moments of your response.
This brings us to the central contradiction of modern achievement culture, which is, why does the obsession with traditional motivation ultimately fail so often?
The sources draw a crucial, clear distinction here. Motivation is loud, certainty is quiet.
Okay.
Motivation needs excitement and external stimulus. It shouts, let's go, get hyped. Certainty requires zero fanfare. It simply whispers with the deep, settled tone of a pilot, I'm already on my way and this course is set.
And the fundamental problem with motivation is its inherent instability.
Right.
because it's purely emotional.
Exactly. It's a sugar rush. It spikes when you watch an inspirational video or attend a high-energy seminar because that external input creates a momentary emotional high.
But it doesn't last.
It never lasts. Because it relies on feeling, it collapses completely when progress slows, when the silence hits, or when results aren't immediately visible. This emotional instability is why most people quit. They mistake a feeling for a strategy.
And discipline built on a feeling.
Cannot sustain a long effort. It just can't.
So if motivation is the sugar rush, hot, fast, and prone to crash, what is certainty?
Certainty is the deep, slow metabolic energy, like the fat or ketones. It doesn't rely on the external spike. It is a fundamental, non-negotiable decision about your path and your identity that has already been made internally.
So it's independent of your mood.
It does not require hype, and it is entirely independent of how you happen to feel on a Tuesday morning. Because it is a decision, not an emotion, it provides continuous, sustainable power.
This decision-based approach, it leads directly to the power of what they call the identity question.
Yes. When you live your life driven by motivation, you are constantly engaged in this exhausting internal negotiation. Do I feel like doing this today? Am I inspired? Is this worth the effort?
But certainty removes that friction.
Completely.
Yeah.
When you operate from certainty, you bypass the emotional brain and you simply ask, what does the person I decided to become, the person who acts as if everything works out, do next, regardless of feeling?
And that question is a shortcut.
It's a total shortcut. It pulls you forward with the quiet, steady gravity of habit, unlike motivation, which only works if the environment is perfect.
You know, I find that the most successful people, the ones who really win the long game, they often have a surprisingly low emotional profile.
Yeah.
They're not bouncing off the walls with hype.
They are the calm ones. They view pressure as information, not a threat. They don't panic when plans change because their certainty is not rooted in the plan.
It's rooted in themselves.
It's rooted in their capacity to adapt. The sources define their behavior as certainty in action. Action without desperation, effort without panic, and intensity without emotional chaos.
The moment you remove emotional chaos from high intensity, you free up massive amounts of cognitive capacity.
That's the key dividend. They look relaxed under pressure because nothing has shaken their chosen identity. Once that identity decision is finalized, the necessary behavior, the consistency, the adaptation, the refinement, it becomes automatic rather than a constant, exhausting internal debate.
Okay, let's compare their internal responses under stress. Motivation asks, why is this happening to me? This must be a sign I should stop or pivot drastically.
Right. It's looking for an out. Certainty simply asks, okay, what's the next most refined move that maintains momentum?
So motivation negotiates.
Motivation negotiates with the self. Certainty commits. Motivation looks for immediate reward. Certainty creates deep strategic direction, which is vastly more valuable than a fleeting burst of excitement.
And this difference, it fundamentally defines their relationship with time and with outcomes. Motivation is emotionally invested in validation. It needs results now to justify the effort.
Whereas certainty is invested in the long game, it's the certainty that the alignment of identity and action will inevitably produce the desired outcome. Maybe not on the schedule you chose, but on the schedule that's required.
That's a huge liberation.
It is. It allows the individual to stop obsessing over short-term validations, tiny fluctuations, and the immediate metrics of the market. They understand that progress is nonlinear, growth is often silent, and results rarely announce themselves early. They just stay steady and adjust based on data, not fear.
So the ultimate synthesis here is that motivation is a tool for starting, but certainty is the engine for finishing.
Anyone can start when they feel inspired. The rare winners are the ones who continue when inspiration fades, and they continue precisely because they are calmer and they trust delayed gratification. When the outcome is assumed to be handled, your work instantly becomes cleaner, more focused, and sustainable. You stop sprinting on anxiety and you start walking with purpose, and that purposeful, steady gait always, always beats running in circles out of fear.
So we shift now to the core mechanism that determines all of this, the irreversible sequence: identity, behavior, outcome.
This is where most people get tripped up. They think, if I just work harder, I'll get the money. Outcome, and then I'll finally feel like a success. Identity.
The backward approach.
The backward approach, and it traps people in endless chasing. The source material is adamant about this. Outcomes are not meant to be chased, they are meant to be produced. And what produces outcomes is identity, not simply effort alone.
So effort without the right identity.
Is like putting fuel in a car with square wheels. It's high friction and low yield.
This redefines the common instruction to act as if. It's so often mistaken for pretending or, forcing some kind of fake confidence.
It's not pretending at all. It means aligning your behavior now with the identity you have already decided to embrace before the world confirms that identity. It's about coherence.
The source analogy is perfect here.
It is. Outcomes follow identity the way a shadow follows form. You don't try to catch the shadow. You focus all your energy on shaping the object, which is your identity, and the resulting actions it demands.
And the quiet, almost cruel truth that explains so much decades-long struggle is that you will never consistently outperform the version of yourself your subconscious believes you are.
But subconscious is fiercely loyal to identity coherence. It works constantly to protect your self-image. If you secretly identify as someone who is always playing catch-up,
Your timing will always be late.
your timing will always be late. If you identify as someone who tries hard but always quits at 90%, your behavior will automatically create that final 10% room for retreat or failure. The inner system just hates misalignment.
So identity acts as an internal GPS, answering critical decision points before conscious thought even kicks in.
Yes, it answers all the friction questions. A person who identifies as disciplined doesn't waste energy asking, should I do my work today? That's a settled matter.
Right.
They ask, given my priorities, when is the most effective time to execute? A person who operates from certainty does not chase reassurance. They move with the quiet, effortless speed of someone following instructions from within. Behavior flows from identity, not toward it.
The trap is waiting for that external validation. I'll shift my behavior once I get the promotion or once the money hits the bank.
And that is perpetual reaction mode. You wake up every morning in a state of hypervigilance, scanning reality for signs. Did it work yet? Am I allowed to be confident now? This constant external monitoring is a massive drain on mental and emotional energy.
It prevents deep work.
It prevents you from focusing on the deep work because you are busy defending your identity from the current reality.
So the shift is powerful. Identity moves first. You stop checking external reality because you already know who you are becoming, and that direction is non-negotiable.
And this chosen internal alignment, it must be consistent to reprogram the subconscious. The subconscious accepts a new identity, not because you told it to in an affirmation, but because you showed it through every small, repeated, aligned action. You have to behave as if the identity is true until the subconscious drops its old script and just adopts the new one as fact.
I love the analogy from the source material. Identity is the current beneath the water. Outcomes are the ripples on the surface.
And most people spend their lives splashing the surface, right, trying to force the ripples to look different. But the true path is adjusting the current. When the identity is clear and the assumption is steady, the current is strong, and speed takes care of itself.
So the effort feels different.
When effort flows from being someone, you are simply embodying the identity. It feels purposeful, grounded, and low friction, rather than heavy or forced. This quiet embodiment, walking calmer, making clean decisions, maintaining a steady tone, that is the tangible change that precedes the external results.
Okay, so once we've decided on the identity, we need to install that core certainty that everything works out assumption into the subconscious without triggering the body's internal resistance. And the sources explain why loud, forced affirmations usually fail.
They fail because people attempt to force belief violently. They repeat these loud declarations, I am a billionaire, I am unstoppable, that their nervous system immediately recognizes as a lie.
It feels fake.
It feels fake. That immediate internal conflict, your words say one thing, your body feels another. It creates a quiet resistance, and that resistance always wins. The subconscious is loyal to familiarity and coherence, not to volume.
So auto-suggestion, as they call it, is about gradually lowering the volume of the doubt, making the new certainty feel natural, almost like background music.
Exactly. The key is the test of believability. If you use hyperbole, your system tightens, your breath shortens, and your internal sensor flags it as a threat or a delusion. The mind is just trying to protect its existing coherence.
So we need to bypass that internal sensor.
We do. We bypass it by making the suggestion feel reasonable and gentle, a step forward, not a massive stressful leap.
So instead of demanding a completely new reality, we use phrases that acknowledge the current situation while gently guiding the mind toward the desired assumption.
Precisely. For instance, instead of saying, everything is perfect and effortless, which your mind will just reject, you could try the grounded, gentle phrase, things are moving in my favor and I remain steady even if I don't see the full path yet.
That feels different.
Notice how that phrase softens the system. It's reasonable. It accepts the current uncertainty while reinforcing your internal control. Autosuggestion works best when it slips past resistance, accepting what feels reasonable when repeated consistently.
Let's discuss the mechanics then. Tone, timing, and repetition. How do we approach this inner conversation effectively?
Okay, tone must be calm, steady, and certain, like a trusted friend giving guidance, not a drill sergeant issuing a command. If you try, I must be aggressive to win, your body will tense up.
Right.
But if you use, I remain steady, knowing refinement is more powerful than rushing, you invite relaxation and acceptance.
And timing.
Timing is crucial because the subconscious is most receptive when the conscious, analytical mind is quiet. This is primarily in the hypnagogic state, so just before sleep or immediately after waking.
You're groggy.
Exactly. Or during low-focus activities like a slow, mindful walk or light chores. You want to install beliefs when the mental defenses are low, not when you are rushed, hyped, or multitasking. Calm states create neuroplasticity.
And the role of repetition is just to build a pathway.
Repetition is how the brain builds neural pathways, but it requires repetition across days and weeks, not just one massive session. And crucially, the subconscious learns faster from a feeling than it does from complex logic.
So you have to pair them.
You pair those short, simple, non-argumentative phrases, which the subconscious prefers for pattern recognition, with a relaxed physical state. Slow breathing, soft attention, zero urgency. Urgency signals danger. Calm signals that the new assumption is the default setting.
The ultimate goal, then, is not installing some hyper-aggressive new strength, but simply uninstalling the internal noise and interference that comes from doubt.
Yes, the strength and capability are already present. The purpose of this gentle autosuggestion is just to remove the habitual interference that keeps you in reaction mode. You'll know it's working because the process gets easier and calmer over time. Internal arguments fade, overthinking decreases, and decisions feel more grounded because you have consistently fed calm certainty and systematically starved doubt.
You're installing peace, not a fight.
Exactly.
So we have the certainty installed, but how do we sustain the action that makes results inevitable without burning out? This is where the concept of the extra mile comes in, and the sources define it very differently from hustle culture.
This is the quiet mechanism for building unstoppable momentum. The extra mile is defined as doing slightly more than required, consistently, without needing recognition or applause.
So it's not about working 18-hour days.
Not at all. It's about micro-actions that change your identity from someone who just meets expectations to someone who is committed to refinement.
And the paradox is why the extra mile is empty. Why is that?
It's empty because it exists in the zone where the immediate reward system shuts down. Most people stop exactly when they hit the required threshold. They ask that self-sabotaging question, who will notice this tiny refinement? Why bother?
And that question is the dividing line.
It is the dividing line between average and exceptional. The extra mile is powerful precisely because hardly anyone goes there, and its rewards are paid later in non-negotiable self-trust and leverage.
So it's less about the external result of the action and entirely about building internal credibility with yourself.
It's the primary way to remove internal negotiation. Just think about how much energy people waste debating themselves. I'll stop here. That's good enough. I'll finish it later. Each negotiation weakens self-trust. The extra mile ends that debate immediately. By doing slightly more, you send a clear, quiet message to your subconscious. I am someone who follows through, I maintain high standards, and I do not cut corners.
Can you give us concrete, practical examples of the extra mile that don't involve staying 2 hours late? The listener needs microactions here.
Certainly. It's small, repeatable behavior. It's not stopping 2 hours later, but maybe stopping 5 minutes later to organize your files so tomorrow starts clean.
Okay.
It's refining the core idea one more time when you're ready to ship it. It's answering an email clearly and thoroughly instead of quickly and ambiguously. If you take notes, it's reviewing them for 60 seconds immediately after the meeting to cement them instead of just closing the book. Tiny actions, zero applause, high internal return.
And if you operate from calm certainty, the assumption that everything works out, the extra mile is simply alignment, not pressure.
It becomes natural. Fear looks for the fastest route and the biggest shortcut. Certainty says, do it well, finish clean, there is time, because the outcome is guaranteed by my identity, not by this one specific effort. The extra mile is alignment, not pressure. You are doing more not to prove your worth externally, but because you respect your internal standard.
We also need to apply this internally to self-promises. That feels like the most critical credibility zone.
It is. Most people erode their self-trust by breaking small promises daily. I'll wake up at 6, I'll eat healthy, I'll read 10 pages. The extra mile repairs that trust. It says, I do what I said, plus a little more consistency. When that trust returns, a grounded confidence emerges. A confidence that is stable, non-affirmative, and doesn't require constant external validation.
So the final reframe is that the extra mile is not primarily about effort or output.
It's about integrity, and integrity here is defined as the perfect, non-negotiable alignment between your actions and your highest standards. When your actions consistently match your standards, life simplifies. The need for emotional negotiation vanishes and your decisions become cleaner. You stop guessing who you are, you know. And that knowing, built by micro-integrity, is the most stable form of certainty available.
We often internalize personal growth, but the sources force us to acknowledge that our certainty is vulnerable to the environment. Our mind is constantly tuned by what we allow near it. This is the concept of mastermind energy.
Your nervous system is constantly scanning and absorbing the emotional frequency of your environment, the thinking, the tone, the accepted ceiling of ambition. You don't rise or fall alone, you rise or fall to the collective level of thinking you are routinely surrounded by.
And this isn't about the content of the conversations.
No, it's about the underlying energetic tone.
And the subconscious doesn't fight what feels normal, even if that normal is destructive.
That's the subconscious trap. It absorbs complaints, sarcasm, habitual cynicism, and doubt disguised as just telling it like it is. If the dominant tone around you is one of chronic struggle or impending failure, your nervous system learns to operate in a constant state of low-grade bracing. It accepts that doubt as the operational reality.
So motivation might spike.
But the environment always pulls you back to the emotional baseline.
So if your goal is calm certainty, the idea that everything works out, it becomes nearly impossible if you are constantly interacting with people who default to expecting failure.
Their energy is constantly training your system to contract instead of expanding. The strategy here is radical self-protection. It's not to argue with negativity or try to convince skeptics of your dream.
It's just to reduce exposure.
It's simply to reduce your exposure to those dissonant frequencies. Boundaries are not mean. They are non-negotiable tools of self-respect and identity protection.
How do we define a true mastermind based on these sources? It's not just a networking group, is it?
No. A true mastermind is any environment, physical or informational, that consistently reinforces calm certainty, long-term thinking, emotional regulation, and quiet, sustained discipline. It feels grounded, stabilizing, and subtly elevating. It doesn't hike you up, it clears the ground beneath you.
And we must recognize that this mastermind includes our internal landscape and all the inputs we consume.
Absolutely. Your internal dialogue is part of your mastermind. If your inner voice is rushed, critical, or harsh, that tone was absorbed from an external environment at some point. You change it through repeated exposure to a different, calmer tone.
And our media consumption.
For sure. Your mind doesn't distinguish between the voice of your friend and the voice in your audiobook repetition equals authority. What content you listen to, what you read, what you scroll, this is all active mastermind curation.
And how do we deal with the difficulty of close relationships? Sometimes the people we love are the greatest source of doubt.
They often pull you back unconsciously because they are attached to the older, more predictable, smaller version of you. Your growth destabilizes their reality.
So what do the sources advise?
Radical self-respect. You don't need to explain your growth, ask permission to evolve, or debate your vision. You simply choose the influences you allow near your core frequency, and you let your consistent actions speak for itself. You set quiet, firm boundaries, and you continue to move.
The ultimate practical strategy for protecting this mental ecosystem must start the moment we wake up. Guard your mornings.
The first input, set the emotional frequency for the day. If you check panic-inducing news or chaotic social media immediately, you install tension that remains with you all day. Panic early equals low resilience later. Calm, purposeful input early, even just 5 minutes of quiet certainty equals high resilience later. Your mastermind energy begins the moment you wake up, and certainty must be fed daily, not just occasionally.
This is how you stop needing willpower.
Exactly, when your internal ecosystem automatically supports certainty.
Okay, we've established identity and consistency, but the sources argue that permanent change isn't secured until we address the most subtle form of fear, leaving a quiet escape hatch open.
That internal negotiation, I'll try this new behavior, but if it doesn't work, I can always retreat to my old habits or my safety net. that dissolves all decision power. Decision power isn't high-intensity effort, it is finality. You cannot successfully become a new version of yourself while keeping the old version comfortable, negotiated, and ready for re-entry.
So burning the old exit doesn't necessarily mean selling your house or quitting your job dramatically. It means removing the option to stay the same.
When the option for retreat is irrevocably gone, the nervous system stops the most exhausting internal debate. The question of ambivalence, should I keep going?
It simplifies things.
It immediately shifts its entire focus to the only remaining question. How do I make this work? This radical simplification of focus simplifies actions and sharpens problem solving because you've removed the greatest energy drain, constant second guessing.
Can we detail what burning the exit looks like in practice, particularly in, non-dramatic day-to-day life?
It is often subtle and firm. It looks like no longer entertaining skeptics by explaining your goals. It's archiving or deleting the physical remnants of the old self, the clothes that reflect the old identity, the project files from failed attempts you swore you'd return to.
Getting rid of the just-in-case stuff.
It's dropping the just-in-case habits that belong to the version of you who always quit. It's a clean line drawn in the sand, a commitment to behavior, not to outcome. You commit to the process with the assumption of success, knowing retreat is non-negotiable.
And this removal of alternatives is what breeds certainty.
Exactly. Certainty comes from the removal of alternatives. When the mind is presented with 10 ambiguous options, it hesitates and it freezes. When there is only one non-negotiable direction left, movement becomes natural and necessary.
And fear thrives on open doors.
If this fails, what then? When the decision is final, fear is relegated to background noise. It loses its power to lead your actions. You move with fear present, but without consulting it as a guide.
And this finality is reflected in our internal language.
Decision power changes language immediately. The internal exit is held open by phrases like, I'll try, or I hope this works, or I'll see how I feel next week.
Right.
When the exit is burned, that language shifts to clarity and commitment. I'll try becomes, I'll continue. I hope becomes, I am committed. If it works becomes, I will adjust until it does. This signals undeniable stability to the subconscious.
And we must acknowledge that when you burn an exit, discomfort is a guarantee, but it's not a sign of failure.
That discomfort is the nervous system recalibrating. It's the old system losing ground and throwing a tantrum. Old doubts will whisper, but you must stay consistent. The system adapts quickly when it realizes the decision is real and non-negotiable. You've crossed the Rubicon. The path forward is the only path left.
We've reached the final synthesis of all these concepts. The deepest shift is transitioning from aggressive striving to the posture of allowing alignment to complete its work. It's where the inner debate has finally ended and effort softens into execution.
Acting as if at this stage is no longer performance. It is simply the natural posture of coherence. And most people, tragically, they sabotage themselves right here. They plant the seed of certainty, they commit to the identity.
And then they dig it up.
They immediately start emotionally monitoring, checking results, constantly digging up the seed to see if it's growing.
That constant anxious checking instantly reintroduces doubt and friction, which slows everything down.
It does. The final posture means you do your part, the quiet, consistent work of the extra mile, and then you stop checking and you rest your mind. This is not passivity, it's precision. When your assumption is set, your identity is stable, and your decisions are final, you step back and allow reality to respond to your new internal frequency.
The sources referred to the physical manifestation of this alignment as the calm signal. How does the listener recognize that feeling?
The signal isn't a loud voice or a feeling of euphoria. It is fundamentally physiological. When you are aligned, your nervous system relaxes. Your heart rate is slightly lower than normal. Your breathing drops deep into your diaphragm. There is a distinct lack of tension in your jaw and shoulders. Your perception sharpens. It does. You start to respond to external events instead of reacting emotionally. You choose better timing. That is how life catches up, not through a sudden miracle, but through the mechanical improvement of your own decision-making, your own clarity, and patience.
So you stop creating friction.
You stop creating friction. You stop resisting delays because you know they are redirection. You stop interpreting silence as failure, but as fertile ground. Silence becomes space, and space allows the mechanics of alignment to operate efficiently.
And the role of sleep is emphasized as the ultimate integration zone for this new identity.
Sleep is where the subconscious organizes and installs what the conscious mind releases. Falling asleep anchored in trust, not tension releasing the need to monitor the outcome, allows the mind to hardwire the new identity. You wake up oriented, directed, and calm rather than frantic or desperate because the system has completed its silent work.
Which brings us to the final, beautiful truth that pulls everything into focus.
The ultimate truth is, you don't attract what you want, you allow what matches you. When your inner world stabilizes, when you are consistent, when your assumption is certainty, when your identity is clear, your outer world reorganizes inevitably, almost instantly. Inconsistency simply cannot survive in the face of alignment. When you stop striving, when you stop fighting yourself and demanding outcomes on your timeline, things accelerate and life feels exponentially less heavy.
This has been a profound deep dive into the mechanics of certainty. The ultimate takeaway for you, the learner, is that certainty is the ultimate time saver. By choosing your core assumption first and focusing intensely on identity alignment and quiet consistency, you eliminate the emotional friction, the endless internal negotiation, and the monitoring behavior that delays progress for years.
We learned today that waiting for proof is one of the most subtle, insidious forms of fear. It looks like responsibility, but it trains you to doubt your direction daily. The truth is, the path only reveals itself, only becomes visible once you are already walking with commitment. Evidence follows commitment, not the other way around. Now that the option for retreat is off the table, what quiet, consistent, non-negotiable action will you take tomorrow to reflect the person you have already decided to become?